Hello, I want to share with you the story of Daniel. You might have heard it before. Here is a guy who was probably younger than me when he was forcibly removed from his home, his family, his country, everything he knew, and was stripped of his identity, even his name, and indoctrinated. That's the best word to describe it, and made to serve a pretty ruthless king. And I talk about struggles. That is a struggle. That is a pretty horrible situation. And I think, obviously, not to that extent, but we've known a little bit of that. Even this last few weeks, I've not had the best few weeks. It's not been great on the whole. But I have been studying the book of Daniel, and it has brought me a lot of comfort, a lot of courage, and even a bit of peace. Because I've seen how, on my part, there's doubt and frustration, but on God's part, there is always faithfulness, even if it's unseen. And there is example after example after example of that in Daniel's life. You know, that situation, that was horrible for him. It must have been, I don't have the words to describe how bad a situation that is. But he had an anchor. He had what I can only describe as an anchor of his soul, right? The depths of his being, he had faith and trusted in God, in his faithfulness. And even though that situation was terrible, it was a nation completely against the God of Israel, assaulting him on every side, hostile to him, his belief, and it was ruthless. And yet, he stayed true, he stayed faithful, because he had that anchor, that trust in a good God that was always faithful. And he knew God was working out his purposes, even though his situation was awful. And it would have been painful. Yet that foundation remained firm, and he kept faith. And he changed the course of nations and was probably the greatest witness to God in an entire empire. And it astounds me the faithfulness he had, the wisdom and respect and diplomacy and gentleness and mercy and understanding and strength he had because of that foundation of God. He knew what was coming. He read the prophecies, and it would have been scary when he was carted off to Babylon. It would have been pretty scary. And yet he served that nation with such faithfulness probably most of his life, because he had God with him. He had that anchor of the soul in God. And some of you will be really struggling right now. I know that. And for the rest of us, there's probably a few things we're struggling with too. It probably has been for a year or so. But there is a hope, and we can have faith and trust in him and that anchor. So have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Sunday.